Hey, princess. I heard you had a rough day. Mind if I come in? Why, thank you. uh, I can see by the glare that you probably don't want to talk about it. That's perfectly okay. I'm not here to force you to talk about something that you don't want to talk about. But, since I'm here, would you mind if we sat and didn't talk about it together? What? Is it so strange that I should want to spend time with my little princess, even now? Just because you're a little older now doesn't mean that you won't always be my little princess. That's just how it works, kiddo. What? Don't like the nickname, but you used to love it. Remember when we used to have tea parties with your dolls, and you made me play the part of the gross butler who wasn't allowed to sit down with the fair noble ladies? Yeah. Oh. Hey, now. Don't go throwing pillows just because you got embarrassed by your own past. Fine. Fine. I won't bring up the thousands of other cute things you used to do either. Yep, I'm sealing those in my mind. We will never bring them up again. Hmm? Oh. I can see that you're still not in the mood to talk about it, but you really don't have to. Whether you want to open up and talk with me, or you just want to keep it all bottled up, it really doesn't make any difference to me. I'm gonna be here either way. That's my job. Yeah, just let me spend some time with my little princess, okay? But if you ever do want to talk about it, I'll be right here whenever you're ready. That said, maybe I should give you a little bit of space, huh? Sometimes space is what people need, but. Huh? I see. You want me to stick around for a while? I can do that, but not talking, right? Okay. Well, if we aren't talking, then how about I do something else that I used to do for my darling little princess? Let me go grab your copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales, okay? Huh? No, no. You're never too old to have your old man read you a bedtime story. You used to love these. Ah, there we go. There's that look of reluctant acceptance that I've grown to know and love. Alright, how about we start off with this one? Rumpelstiltskin. You used to like this one quite a bit, for one reason or another. Here we go. Rumpelstiltskin. Once upon a time, there lived a miller who had a beautiful daughter. Now it happened that the miller had to visit the king's castle, and while he was going through the garden, he met the king face to face. The king, seeing the poor miller, spoke to him kindly, and the miller, who wished to be thought very rich, told the king that he had a daughter who could spin straw into gold. "Ah," said the king, "that is a great art, and I should like above all things to have your daughter come to the castle and spin for me." Then indeed the miller was afraid, but he had to do as the king ordered, and so the next day he brought his daughter to the castle. The greedy king, who loved gold above all things, led the poor girl into a room filled with straw, of course, in the middle of which stood a spinning wheel with many spindles about it. "There," said the king, "is your spinning wheel, and here is the straw. If you do not spin all of it into gold by tomorrow morning, your head shall be cut off." That's a bit of an escalation for a king, but with monarchies, monarchs get the final say, right, darling? That's why you're the princess. Then he left the maiden and carefully locked the door behind him. The poor girl could only sit and weep, for she had not the least idea how to spin straw into gold. In the midst of her tears, the door flew open, and a little old man with bandy legs and a fiery red nose sprang into the room. Taking off his long peaked cap, he bowed low to the maiden and said, "Good evening, my dear young lady. What is the cause of these tears? First of all, how did he get into the locked room? How is he in the king's castle?" I don't know. What do you think, darling? Do you think this old man knew that he was trespassing in the king's castle? What? Continue the story? Fine, fine. "Alas," answered the girl, "I am here by order of the king, who has told me that I must spin this straw into gold or lose my life." Then the mannequin said, "What will you give me if I will spin it for you?" "This string of gold beads," answered the maiden. The little man took the beads, slipped them into his pocket, and sat before the spinning wheel. Hardly had the wheel begun to sing its whir, 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 when the maiden saw that the spindle was filled with the finest of spun gold. Again the wheel went humming round, and again the spindle was filled. The little man kept so busily at work that before long all the straw was gone, and in its place were spindles full of gold. The next morning at sunrise, the king unbolted the door, which had apparently been bolted again by the little old man who had barged into the room with the girl. Yes, let's just assume that the little old man decided it would be very suspicious if he did not lock the door back up as he was leaving. Yeah, yes, the old man, he's very wise beyond his years. That's why he has skills like these, right, princess? I think so. So the little old man, wise beyond his years, locked up the door behind him. That way, the king would not get suspicious that this woman who could have run away at any time somehow had her door opened. And of course, none of the guards, the king's guards who were patrolling the palace, realized that this disturbance even occurred. Anyway, the next morning at sunrise, the king unbolted the door, and his greedy eyes were filled with joy at sight of the golden spindles. These riches made the king even more greedy than before, and leading the maiden into a still larger chamber, where there was a great pile of straw, he said, "Young woman, if you value your life, you must spin this straw into gold before tomorrow's sun." Then he turned and left the room. The maiden's eyes filled with tears at sight of this huge heap of straw, and sitting down, she began to weep. This really is escalating, right? No one ever said that she could spin a lot of straw into gold. The miller merely said that she knew how to do it. There's no reason for the king at this point to believe that she could spin all of a chamber's worth of straw into gold spindles. What? That's not in the spirit of the story? Well, maybe it should have been. Maybe they should have written more logical fairy tales. Yeah. I think that might be the motivation for this story, right? To not be greedy. What? No, I'm sure that's what it means. Yeah. We'll get there. I remember reading this to you, after all. The maiden's eyes filled with tears at sight of this huge heap of straw, and sitting down, she began to weep. All at once, the door opened, and in jumped the mannequin. Going up to the weeping maiden, he took off his pointed cap and said, "What will you give me if I help you again and spin the straw into gold?" This is getting really strange. Like, how does he know that she needs this help at exactly this timing? Very magical being, apparently. "The ring from my finger," said the maiden. The little man took the ring and put it in his pocket. Then sitting down before the spinning wheel, he began to spin, and so quickly did he work that long before daylight, the straw had all been turned into gold. The next morning, when the king looked upon the heap of golden spindles, he thought it the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. But the pile of gold only made him eager for more, and taking the maiden by the hand, he led her to a still larger chamber, quite full of straw. In fact, it could have been a stable. Indeed, there was hardly room for the girl to sit with her spinning wheel. As the king was about to leave the room, he said to the maiden, "This straw you must also spin into gold before tomorrow's sun, or you shall die. But if you can do the task, I'll marry you and make you queen over my whole kingdom." We don't even know his age, so it's very possible that this is a very old king and a very young daughter. I don't know if I should have been reading you this kind of story in your youth. I think it sets bad expectations. Okay, I get it. "For," thought the king, "though she is only a miller's daughter, yet with her spinning wheel, she can make me the richest king in the world." That's right. Very pragmatic, this king. I should have probably taught you more romantic stories when you were younger, right? I shouldn't have given you such a pragmatic lesson. I might as well have just read you Machiavellian, like, ethics and just been done with it at that point. Hardly had the door closed behind the king when the little man came hopping and skipping into the room, and taking off his pointed cap, he said, "What will you give me if I will spin this straw for you as I have done before?" "Alas," answered the maiden, "I have nothing more to give." "In that case," said the mannequin, "I cannot help you, unless you will promise to give me your first child after you have become queen." "Well," thought the maiden, "it is my only hope, and who knows what may happen." So she gave her promise to the little man. Then the mannequin sat down at the spinning wheel, and soon the wheel began to whir, and the spindles were filled with gold. When the king opened the door the next morning, and saw the beautiful maiden sitting in the midst of the golden spindles, he was very glad to keep his promise, and the poor miller's daughter became queen over the whole kingdom. And if we had ended the tale here, my little princess, everything would have been fine, right? Unfortunately, the promises that we make along the way often come back to bite us. Yes, let's see how that turned out. I know you've heard the story 100 times, but you never know what you might pick up the next time, the 101st time, right? About a year afterward, a beautiful little prince was born in the castle. The queen had forgotten all about her promise to the little man, until one evening he came into the room and asked her to give him her child. The queen was so filled with terror that she fell on her knees and begged the little man to take all the riches of the kingdom, but to leave her the child. "No," said the little man, "I will not do it. Something living will please me more than all the riches in the world." "What are you going to do with the baby?" I think this might have been a very strange story to read you as a kid. Then the queen began to weep and to beg so hard for her child that at last the little man had pity upon her and said, "I will give you one chance. If within 3 days you can guess my name, you shall keep your child." The queen lay awake that night, thinking of all the names she had ever heard. In the morning, men were sent to every part of the kingdom to write down the strangest names they could find. The next evening, the little man came again, and the queen began to call off to him all the names that she had found: Casper, Melchior, Balgar, and many, many others. But at each one, the little man shook his head and said, "No, that is not my name." The second day, the queen had her servants go from house to house through the town and take down the name of every man, woman, and child. When the little man came that evening, she had a long list of strange names to give him. "Perhaps your name is Cow Ribs, Spindle Shanks, and Lace Legs," she said. But he answered to each one, "No, that is not my name." On the third day, the men came back who had been sent over the kingdom to search for new names. The queen could get no help from them, until at last one came who said, "I have not been able to find any new names, but on the side of a high mountain, in the deep woods, I heard a fox wish good night to a rabbit. Soon I came upon a little house, in front of which a fire was burning. Around this fire danced a little man with a pointed cap, and a nose which was fiery red. And as he went hopping and jumping about, first on one leg, and then on the other, he sang, "My baking and brewing I'll do today, the queen's son tomorrow I'll take away. No wise man can show the queen where to begin, for my name, to be sure, is Rumpelstiltskin." The queen clapped her hands for joy. She knew that at last she had found the name of the queer little man. Having sent the servant away with a bag of gold, she waited for the mannikin to come to her. Soon the little fellow came hopping and skipping up to the queen and said, "Now, O queen, this is your last chance to tell me my name." Then the queen asked, "Is your name Conrad?" "No." "Henry?" "No." "Then your name is Rumpelstiltskin." "The fairies have told you! The fairies have told you!" shouted the little man. He became so angry that in his rage he stamped his right foot into the ground with such force that he sank up to his knee in the earth. This made him more angry still, and taking hold of his left leg with both hands, he pulled so hard that he tore himself quite in two. That's the end of the story. I don't remember that being the ending. Well, princess, it sure took some turns, didn't it? I don't remember things being quite like that for Rumpelstiltskin, but ripping yourself in two? I guess it was more common back in that era. I really don't remember these stories being so dark. Did you really like these as a kid? Hey, I'm not judging. I wouldn't have read them to you if I were going to judge you for liking them, right? Hmm. You look a bit tired, though. Did Her Royal Highness get sleepy from the story? Ah, so cute. Just like the old days, huh? Well, I'll let you get some sleep then. Okay, princess? But not before a forehead kiss. Okay, and a head tap. Listen. I'll still be here tomorrow if you want to talk about whatever has been bothering you. I'll still be here if you need until a week, a month, a year. However long you need, I'll still be there. So, I'll see you in the morning, okay? Good night. Sweet dreams. I love you, princess.